Welcome to the UIAAA Connection podcast. We thank GoFan and VNN, the exclusive sponsors of the UIAAA Connection. Now operating as one combined company, GoFan and VNN offer a seamless experience through digital ticketing and athletic websites. They make it easy to direct fans to one central place for schedules, communication, and tickets for both home and away events. We appreciate GoFan and VNN for their continued support and exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection podcast.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch-Hunter. Today we have as our special guest, Kevin Andersen, the Director of Athletics at Mountain Crest High School in Hiram, Utah, up in Cashe Valley. Welcome to the podcast, Kevin.
Well, thank you. Thanks for reaching out and having me.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our international audience where you grew up, where you went to school, your first job, etc.
I grew up till I was in a small southern Idaho town, Grace, Idaho. I grew up there till I was a freshman in high school. And then between my freshman and sophomore year, we moved to Cashe Valley down here in Mendon, and I actually moved into Mountain Crest. So I started high school at Mountain Crest my sophomore year. And so I didn't make it very far in life. I'm right back where I graduated from.
So you started your sophomore year at Mountain Crest. Was it 83? Was that the first year it opened, wasn't it? So
83, 84 was, 83 was the year that it opened. I came about 3 years in. I moved down in 86.
Okay. All right, perfect. And then from there, where?
From there, I graduated from here, attended Utah State, is where I went to college. My first job was at Bear Lake High School in Montpelier, Idaho, over on the north end of Bear Lake. I was there when I went there, I was the head basketball coach and the freshman coach. I coached them both. And that was a way for them to get me full time. I helped coach football there as well. And then before I knew it, I was sharing an office with the softball coach. And so I became his assistant. Then he became a principal. The next thing I knew it, I was the head softball coach. And so for a while I did football, basketball, and softball. We left there we loved Montpelier, loved Bear Lake. We left there in 04 and went to Ogden High School, where I was the basketball coach and actually coached softball for a couple of years there as well. And then made our way back to Cashe Valley in 2008. Came back as a teacher and a coach at Sky View High School out in Smithfield. And then was there for 3 years, and then eventually made it here to Mountain Crest back in 2016.
So you obviously worked with Ryan Grunig for quite a few years when you were at Skyview.
I worked with Ryan. He was math teacher and assistant soccer coach when I was out there. Ryan always jokes that when I became the athletic director out here, I called Ryan, I don't know how many times a day, asking him athletic director questions, and he was start charging me for these phone calls because I called old Grunig a lot when I took over this position.
Let me ask you this. So growing up in Idaho and then moving around a little bit, did you have a chance to participate in some youth sports in your younger years?
Oh, yeah. Growing up in Grace, I loved when my parents told me we were leaving Grace, I was not very happy. I loved Grace. Both my parents were from there. I grew up watching my older siblings play. So I grew up Little League baseball, Little League basketball were the big ones. It's a small town. That's about what we had was Little League baseball and basketball. But that's kind of where I got I think that's where my love of athletics started. I watched my dad
Sure.
coach my older brothers, and we couldn't start Little League basketball till we were fourth grade. And so I remember going to practices with my older brother, and my dad was the coach, and he'd let me get in, do all the drills and all that. And that's kind of where it started. That's where I don't know, just watching my dad coach and coaching me, it just made me love the basketball was kind of always my favorite, but played football, baseball, and so it was a good little town. For a little trivia, my dad's high school coach was Dick Motta. Uh,
Really?
that's where Dick
Oh,
Motta's first job was at Grace High School, and Phil Johnson, the assistant for the Utah Jazz, was my dad's teammate. And so little Dick Motta got his start in Grace, Idaho.
that's interesting. Thanks so much for sharing that. Let me finish writing that down. Okay, well, along those same lines, let's have you talk about some of the mentors, leaders, coaches you had in your life that have made a difference to you along the way.
Well, I think it stems back to some of the ones I had when I was little. Like uh, my dad was a. I always said he should have been a coach. Uh, but just starting out with him coaching me, and then little league coaches up in Grace I had, they just taught me to love the game. Um, and then when I came to Mount Crest, I played football here, and Jack Robinson, an old, I don't know, back in the day, I thought he was ancient, but now I realize he wasn't that old because I'm getting there. But he was awesome. Coach John Nilsson was my basketball coach here at Mountain Crest, and I
Hmm.
really appreciated him. I remember calling him when my first coaching job at Bear Lake. I remember being on the phone with him a few times. Coach, what do I do here? What do I do there? Uh, so it's kind of his fault that I'm in here. I was, he called me and come and asked me to be his assistant one year, and that's when I started coaching. Was assistant out here at Mountain Crest, and um, so he was a big one. Then when I went to Bear Lake, a guy named Ken Parks, he uh, he was the basketball coach, and then he got out and actually became the football coach, and I took his position in basketball, and then I helped him in football. They'd won the state title the year before I came, and he was a tremendous help as well. And there's been a lot as I went to Ogden. Coach Jim Price, uh, he was he was good to uh, pick his brain, and just a lot of people along the way that have helped me. And probably when I was back at Utah State, I wasn't. I was at Utah State as an athletic trainer. That's what I was going to do with my life, was going to be an athletic trainer. But back in the day, they didn't. You didn't get a degree in it. You just had so many hours and then take this test and become a trainer.
Hmm.
The head trainer at Utah State always encouraged us to go out and get your degree in education. Athletic trainers are going to open up in the high schools. You can broaden your horizons of the possibility of going to high school. So that's what I did. I was going out in education and doing my athletic training, and then I got into coaching. And my senior year of college, I told my wife, I said, if I like this student teaching thing, I think I'm going to jump ship on athletic training and become a coach. And I still remember telling my mom that my mom was the secretary at Grace High School. I came home and told her, I said, Mom, I think I'm gonna be a teacher and a coach. And her answer, her statement to me, I'll never forget. She said, "Oh, Kevin, I thought you were smarter than that." And because she had seen what coaches and stuff go through. And uh, so it was kind of Dell Mildenberger, the head trainer at Utah State, a long time ago, headed me down the headed me down the path of education. And so kind of where it led me.
Great examples. Thanks so much for sharing that. Let's have me ask you a little bit of a personal question I ask all the guests. What is your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
You sent me this last night, and I'm like, I've been pondering that, and
Uh,
I maybe you should ask my wife that. What I think I always reflect. I always look back on my first job at Bear Lake, and I always say I wish I could go back now and coach those early teams, knowing what I know now. Not only as far as like basketball and stuff, basketball and all that, but just how to treat kids and how to treat people. And I wish I could go back and do that job over again, because I think it would be way different. Like, coming
don't
out.
we all?
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
I'd only been I'd been a assistant sophomore coach and then a JV coach, and then I became a head coach. And I don't know, I felt like I had to have all the answers, and I sure as heck didn't have all the answers. Um, and so that's one that I think of often. Oh, I wish I could go back, but that's helped in this athletic director position of when coaches come on board those first few years or so. That's a big learning curve for coaches when they never been a head coach. That first year can be brutal, just a big learning curve, and a lot of things that I can help them with are things that I wish I'd have done differently when I was a young coach. And so, that's one. And I don't have a lot of regrets, a lot of um, things that I wish I could have done differently, but um, that's for sure one.
Some great insight. Thanks for sharing that. Let me ask you this. Not everyone gets the opportunity you had as a teacher, but let me say this right, because I was at Jordan High back when Mountain Crest was built. So I remember playing Mountain Crest back in 83 and 84 when they were a brand
Uh,
new school, and driving on the bus all the way from Jordan up in Sandy all the way up to Hiram there. But now I keep thinking Mountain Crest is a newer school. And of course, it's over 40 years old now. But 10 years ago, I think it's been 9 or 10 years, you had the split. Mountain Crest was split in half into Ridgeline Mountain Crest. The same up at Skyview went into Green Canyon. So talk about the good things and maybe some of the hard things that happen with a split like that, because it can be tough on the community, and a lot of ADs have just been in their school and never experienced that. So I want your view of how that all went down, and the good things that happened and maybe some of the things that weren't so good.
yeah, at the time I was out of coaching. I was I was I was teaching PE. And, well, I wasn't out of I was teaching middle school, but I was coaching the Logan girls. And so I wasn't
Okay.
too involved with like the split. Like I really wasn't looking to become the athletic director, and uh, I was happy where I was. So I wasn't too involved when it was all going out, like the boundaries and all this. But I did come that first year uh, and realized, man, that's been a little bit of a challenge. uh, because Mountain Crest, um, I mean, we lost half our school, uh,
Hmm.
and it was challenging. It took a toll on us, I think, uh, sports wise, in some sports. And that first year, we lost half our school, and I don't think the UHSA had ever seen the thing where, because it was the realignment, and they made us. I don't know if that's the right word, but we had to stay up. Ridgeline came in and they were a 3A school, and we had to stay up and be in with Region One. So it was just a
Ah,
challenging year. We had lost half our school, but we stayed 5A, and we took our
sure.
lumps. But some of the coaches that were here at the time, I really appreciate how they attack that. I mean, we're just going to go compete. It really taught us to, you know what, we can control what we control. We're going to go out and compete, and we took our lumps, and then we had some successes, and that part was really challenging. And now I think there's the rule where if you lose half your student body or a certain percentage, you can drop down to where you belong. And so the community wise, it's been a little, it got a little contentious uh, in the community with some things that happened, and so that was a challenge for the community as well. Um, and then just everything, and then Skyview a year later split, so we went from 3 high schools in the valley to 5, and so yeah, it provided some great opportunities, more kids to get to play, more more student government, more cheerleaders, more football players, more whatever. But it kind of diluted some things, and so it took us a bit to get back up. And then how hard it is to find coaches nowadays too. And so now instead of having 3 high schools up here that are trying to find coaches, there's
Right.
five of us trying to find coaches. And so that's been a little bit of a challenge as well. You don't get as many applicants, and there's uh, like we're looking for a boys volleyball coach right now, and so is another school in the valley. So we got to get one before them, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
But there were some deep traditions that at Mountain Crest, and then people kind of not broke away, but all of a sudden they were going to another school, and it became a little contentious at times. Um, and so I think we're getting over that, and it's still some heated rivalry, that's for sure. But
sure.
I think we're moving past that.
Allow me to ask this question because I didn't realize, I don't think I'd been up to Mountain Ridge until last year. I've been to Mountain Crest plenty of, or Ridgeline, excuse me. If pretty much they're on the same road, aren't they? Just
Yeah,
maybe not that far apart, but I think about, so did they split the whole south end of Cashe Valley east-west? Did they split it north-south, or was it kind of a skewed thing? I mean, I had thought that there would be a bigger distance between the schools, but they're as close as maybe or closer than maybe Alta and Jordan down in Sandy. So
yeah, we're close. I mean, it only takes a few minutes to get from Mount Crest to Ridgeline, and we are on the same road. I actually I live in Skyview country actually, and so I drive past Ridgeline on the same road to get to Mount Crest every day, um, and so the boundary is more. It's kind of an east west, because you got the east over here, east of
mhm,
Logan. You got Providence and Millville and all those, and then on the west side of the valley you've got Menda and Wellsville, uh, and then and Paradise is kind of southwest, and so it's kind of an east west. But then there's a little bit of, I don't know what's the word, where like college, like some smaller towns out on the west side that ended up going to Ridgeline, and so it's it, it's a fairly easy split, but a little bit of where, oh mate, why are they going there? They should be going here, type of a deal.
sure. Thanks for sharing that, by the way. Let's have you talk for a minute about your journey with the UIAAA. I think you've probably been a member for 7, 8, 9 years, been to the conference quite a few times. How did you hear about that? Was it the Grunig that got you involved or someone else up there in Cache Valley? Talk about that for a minute.
I can't remember how I just remember I accepted this job like in January, back 10 years ago, January, February, or somewhere around there. And I can't remember who told me about the conference down in St. George. And so my principal sent me down to it. Um, and I love I I I remember sitting by Van Park at Bear River.
Hmm.
He
Sure.
and I coached against each other a lot, and I remember sitting by him in one of the sessions and just picking his brain, talking to him, um, and I just remember going to some of those breakout sessions. And first of all, I was like, "What the world have I done? What have I got myself into here?" But I've been pretty consistent on hitting that St. George on the UIAAA conference. I love it's like a I don't know. I wasn't able to come this year because my wife had some back surgery, and I'm like, oh, it's like a refreshing
Sure.
few days for me where you can see colleagues and but just sit in those sessions and pick pick people's brains and get that would be perfect for us here or whatever. And so I've really enjoyed. It probably was Ryan that got me. That was probably Ryan or Mike Hansen who was at Logan and then
Hmm.
retired from Ridgeline. Probably one of those two were the ones that got me down there the first time.
Perfect. Let me ask you about the job of athletic administrator, Kevin, and how has it changed in the 10 years since you become the AD?
It's I've been thinking about that, and it's it's definitely changed, but some of it's pretty similar. Uh, just think of all the things like when I came on board, like the coach's certification wasn't around,
Hmm.
little things like that. Like Register Mathlete was fairly new and so just the amount of paperwork and computer work that has come up in the last little bit. Uh, the issue of when we used to have hired coaches, we'd have several applicants, and now we're not getting so many applicants to fill positions, and so you're having to make phone calls and knock on doors to get people to come and coach. Um, I think those are some of the big ones, and then just you know up here it's with the addition of schools and all this, of just the busing and all this, like uh, all those things that logistically make athletics run is becoming a little more difficult, I think, to um, just because of the growth of things, which is a good. I guess that's a good problem, good challenge to have. Um, I think those would be the big ones. Just the more of the parents are parents are similar. I mean, most parents are awesome, and they support and so it's I think some of that part's similar, but some of those the I don't know what's the word, clerical things are becoming
Hmm.
more of a focus.
Great insight. Let me have you talk for a little bit more now about Mountain Crest. And like I say, my view of Mountain Crest is a little different because I was at Jordan when they opened up. And as I said earlier, I still consider them a newer school, not realizing that it's like been over 40 years, 43 years since they've opened.
Yeah.
But they've always seemed to have had a legacy in their programs. Their football, I think, has always been good. I know recently you've had success in cross country and in, I think, both wrestlings. You've been quite successful. So talk about, I think you've got over 40 state championships in the over 40 years you've been open, which is a good accomplishment for a school. So talk about that, the sports there at Mountain Crest.
Yeah, they're we feel we're in a pretty good place. Of course, we always like to win more, but it's not all
Sure,
about that. But you know,
everybody
uh,
does.
yeah, when I moved in back in '86, um, um, that I was a sophomore, and Jack Robinson was an old, I think he was an assistant at Utah State, and came down here. Then my junior year was the actual year that we won the first state championship football, was in '87, and we played Skyview. That was the
Hmm.
year that they moved it from the U of U, Rice Eccles, up to the Romney up at Utah State.
I
Um,
remember it well because I was coaching at Jordan at the time and we had lost to Skyview. And then I remember they moved it, and I think it's still the record for attendance
yeah,
at a football championship.
yeah. I think if you go and look down one of the hallways in the UHSA offices, there's a picture of that, kind of
Hmm.
an aerial view of that game, and that was just awesome. And then that same year Temp View beat us in the state championship for basketball. And so since when I moved in, it just, I don't know, I've seen a lot of success from in football. Baseball's a big one. Of course, wrestling is with Coach Davey Swenson, who is here forever. Um, build a powerhouse in wrestling. Brought on girls wrestling a few years ago, and 5 out of the 6 state championships have been at Mountain Crest in wrestling. Um, it's just I it's just we're kind of a farming community a little bit, like kids that work on farms and people that own farms, and so back in the day, that's what a lot of that. And so just that hard work mentality, attitude I think, was very important in building the success of at Mount Crest. And then, we've had some great coaches over the years. My coaches were awesome. The ones that replaced those were great. And some just great kids. You can't,
Mm-hmm.
we've had some great kids pass through here in a lot of different sports. And, I think of, fresh on our minds up here is one of my high school coaches was Dave Caressa, who coached at Mount
Mm-hmm.
Crest for I don't know how long. And then he went to Ridgeline to finish up over there the last few years. And he just passed away this week. And people like that have put so much time and hard work and effort into the athletic programs and into the kids here at Mount Crest is really what's made it successful.
Well said. What's one common myth about athletic administration that you would like to debunk to the general public?
You get paid to watch sports all day. I mean, how many times do I wish I had your job so I could just sit around and watch sports all day. That's probably the biggest myth that I hear is, I mean,
Sure.
I do watch a lot of sports, but that's not all I do. There's a lot that goes into making that sporting event happen. And so, that I think that's the biggest one. That's a great perk to the job. I'm not going to lie, to sit around and watch sports and watch
Be with the
kids
kids.
perform.
Sure.
Yeah, watch kids perform and watch the coaches who put in so much time and their spouses support them when they find success. I think that's just awesome to see. But it's not just sitting around and watching sports.
Very well said. A common misconception, no question. What's the favorite part of your job, Kevin?
Probably, I mean, it's pretty cliche-ish, but the relationships, like from coaches to athletes to administrators to parents. Um, there's so many relationships that I've had. Um, Maybe not just because of athletic directing, but through coaching and um, you know, uh, and being involved in athletics. Some of the greatest relationships I have are people that have coached with me or people I've coached against. That we have great friendships and stuff. But to me, that's the best part. Uh, I I like helping coaches. I remember when I took this job, I was the girls basketball coach at Logan High, and Mike Hansen was the athletic director who recently retired. And I remember when I took this job, I'm like, okay, I want to do it like Mike did, because he was so good at really focusing and looking at the sports that may not be so popular, and really took care of those guys, those programs. Um, and so I really tried to follow his lead in a lot of things. And so I think just building those relationships with people like Mike, like Ryan Grunig. I was thinking coming to work today, our little region up here, when it was the 5 Cashe Valley schools in Bear River, the relationships that I have with those athletic directors are great. Van Parks from who's retired, Mike Hansen, who's retired, and Ryan and Missy Stewart, who's retiring. I mean, just we had such a close working relationship that it really became a, I don't know, friendships that I'll cherish for a long time.
Absolutely. We'll finish up with a couple of questions, Kevin. The first being this. You've got two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator. They need to follow Kevin's suggestions in order to become a success. What would your two suggestions be?
Don't be afraid to ask questions, for one. I mean, I kind of hinted and made fun and joked about this early on, that how many times I called Ryan Grunig or Van Park or Mike Hansen. Is a big one that saved me. Like, I called those people that had been through things before and got their opinions on things. I didn't necessarily do it the way they did, but it sure helped me make a decision on how I wanted to make the decision that I had to make. And so that would be number one, is to reach out to current ADs, former ADs, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I think this, maybe one of the second ones is years ago, I was in like a little professional development, and I watched the principal showed us a video about customer service, and it was the founder of Farr's Ice Cream. And there's a video called "Give Them the Pickle." And I've always, and the principal here, who was the assistant for a long time, we always say to each other, "Give them the pickle." Like, let's give people what they want, like what will help them be successful, help them, or even just make them feel wanted. Like, give them the pickle has become a kind of a statement that we say around here. And there's a good video out there on YouTube if you want to look at it. And so those are probably two big ones. And then you're going to have up and downs, but
Sure.
you got to just enjoy. I always say, like, it's high school sports in the grand scheme of things. This game probably doesn't mean a hill of beans down the road a few years, but those life lessons and those things that they learn from athletics, those are going to take kids and people a long ways. And so enjoy the journey, and you got to laugh, or you're going to cry a lot. So you might as well laugh.
That's well said. Thanks for sharing that. We'll finish with this. Kevin, what question should I have asked you that I failed to ask?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. You asked some pretty good ones. So I'm not sure I have one. But
okay. Well, on that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Kevin Andersen, the Director of Athletics at Mountain Crest High School up in Cashe Valley. Kevin, can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for reaching out.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.